Hi, I'm Patrick, and this is the Mach-E vlog. Recently, Jim Farley released an article on LinkedIn, as well as did a big, long, almost hour-long interview at the Aspen Ideas Festival. I wanted to take an opportunity to look at that, dive a little bit deeper, and put it in the greater context of Ford and their future EVs. So let's go. So just to begin, I'll put a link down in the description of the article on LinkedIn so you can go read that, as well as a link to the interview. It's about a 50-minute interview. It appeared on the CNBC YouTube channel, but I think there's a lot of really good information that was in there, but there was also like greater context needed to be provided. So it's sort of like, if you know what's going on with Ford, you may know a lot of this stuff, but we're going to sort of like look at it, break it down, and go into further detail. I'm going to move the op-ed to the end because a lot of people have already read that. And it was more about, and I'll just give a quick summary. It was basically Jim Farley going like, I'm a car guy and I fell in love with EVs. Not for political reasons, not for any other reason than they're fun to drive and there's a lot of great benefits. And if you're watching this channel, you may feel the same way. If you have a Mach-E, you may feel the same way. So it's basically sort of the same type of things that, like even we went through. We've always been, like cars or whatever, but then it's like once we had our Mach-E, it's like, wow, I really love not having to get gas, the fun of it. And they're very high tech. So I like all of that. But what I really wanted to get into was some of the really like big nuggets that Jim Farley mentioned during this long 50-minute interview. And I know from past interviews that he's done and like things like investor relations days and things like that, people are more focused on some of the minutia that doesn't necessarily matter. And I'm like, there were some big nuggets in here. The biggest one was talking about the Skunkworks team. And if you don't know what the Skunkworks team, we've talked about it in previous videos. It's been throughout the media quite a bit. And it is a team of Ford engineers that Ford has been assembled about 2 years ago, according to Jim Farley, now 2.5 years ago, to develop a low-cost EV platform aiming between like $25,000 to $30,000 for new EVs. And Jim Farley's been very direct about this before, saying like they need the Skunkworks team to operate separately, like a startup. They need to have a little bit of autonomy, not like in a driver car sense, but as in from the rest of the company, to get out of some of that bureaucratic stuff that we sort of associate with large OEMs and have free reign to design something and to revolutionize how Ford is going to build this next generation of EV. And in this interview, he basically talked a little bit more about that. And the biggest thing that I got was, one, he was saying it looks like they are planning on coming into production in 2 to 2.5 years with whatever they come out of the Skunkworks team. They're aiming for less than $30,000. And he said, we're sort of betting the company on them. And it was that was like a wow moment for me, because I sort of felt like the Skunkworks team was very important to Ford. But to have the CEO say, we're betting the future of the company on the Skunkworks team is really something to take note of. And it makes a lot of sense, because he also explained like what they're doing and what Ford needs to do to survive this transition. And he also, that was like another a bit of a wow moment in the video, is like he's like, if Ford doesn't transition to EVs, Ford is not going to survive. And I think we all, like if you think about it in the long term, that's pretty much true. It's like we're going to make this transition to EVs, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years, but at some point cars are going to switch over to be EVs. And it may not be, ever completely 100%. We may have some use cases. We're going to have a lot of classic cars that are going to be, sticking around or whatever. But as a car manufacturer, they got to make the transition. And he basically flat out, said that, and talked about like it isn't just simply a matter of putting in EV motors into like a product that they currently have and then going like, that's it, we're done. There was a lot of discussion in this about how they have to redesign a lot of things. They are redesigning how the cars are being built. He talked about larger castings, simplifying the assembly process, reducing weight, and he brought up like back in the way that Ford does things currently, and a lot of manufacturers do things currently, is if they need wiring harnesses, they'll just bid it out to the lowest bidder, and they're like, who can provide us with this wiring harness, and they'll get the lowest price wiring harness, which means a lower price car, and that's great for now. But the problem is like now with the added weight of a low cost wiring harness, that added weight can mean that you need more battery. Batteries are more expensive than the wiring harness, so you save a bit on the wiring harness, but you spend more on having to provide a bigger battery. So he was like, if you take that across the board on everything in the car, which is why you're talking about like larger castings, less parts, thinner wires, reduced wiring harnesses, simplified electronics and semiconductors, or consolidated, I should say, then you can have a lot of weight savings, and then therefore, first of all, you have a more efficient manufacturing process, but you need less battery. And the batteries is where they're like, we just got to drive the cost of the batteries down. There was also a lot of discussion about the sourcing of batteries and where we're going to get those from. And I was very pleased that like one of the things he was very specific about was like, the U.S. government doesn't require manufacturers to buy from friendly countries that are doing right by their labor force, but there's incentives to do that. And he's like, Ford wants to do it not because they're required, but because it's the right thing to do. They want to make sure that the labor that's getting the minerals are, not child labor or prison labor or anything like that. So Ford is working on making sure their supply chains for the raw materials are done in an appropriate way. And the other part of it too, sort of related to that, is like, you want it from friendly U.S. countries. And he brought up numerous times the connection with the Chinese companies with the Chinese government. And, like we have these fears about TikTok, but he's like, think about your car. Like if you have a Chinese car that has multiple cameras and it's collecting data of where you go and mapping out roads. And it's like, it's in some ways, it's even a bigger threat than TikTok, depending on what security experts you talk to. It's a touchy subject, but he also pointed out like Ford vehicles are banned from parking in certain government facilities in China because of those security concerns by the Chinese government. So he imagines that at some point the switch will flip and the American government might see these same issues. They talked a bit about the 100% tariff that the Biden administration is going to impose on Chinese-made EVs, and whether that was a good idea or a bad idea. Basically, he's, again, sort of staying out of the politics of it, but basically said it's in a few years, it's going to be irrelevant because the Chinese companies already in Mexico, 1 out of 4 cars sold in Mexico now are made by Chinese companies. Now, they're not necessarily manufactured there, but Chinese companies are going to be building factories in Mexico and potentially Canada, potentially the U.S., but I think they'll have a lot of barriers if they want to try to do that. So more than likely, they'll go build these factories in Mexico, and because of the NAFTA, which has been renamed, I forget, trade agreement, if the car is built in Mexico, the NAFTA agreement says we can't impose tariffs on it like we would the Chinese manufactured cars. So that means they are coming. The Chinese cars are coming. The 100% tariff is really just sort of like a speed bump for them. We just saw Volvo EX30, which is actually was going to be made in China. They're also going to be making it over in Europe. they decided now they're delaying the introduction of the Volvo EX30 into the U.S. market until they can provide us with the ones made in Europe, because the ones from China are going to cost so much because of the tariffs. So he went into all of the, like, the Chinese companies are coming. They were going to be coming quickly, and we need to get ahead of the game, which is going back to, like, Ford has to focus on the Skunkworks team, and they have to redesign their whole process. So one of the things that I did want to do is, like, sort of connect this to what they are doing. So it's like, yes, we know about the Skunkworks team, which, by the way, just last week, I believe it was on Wednesday or Thursday, the mayor of Long Beach, California, announced that Ford was coming to Long Beach, and it's the Skunkworks team, and they are going to build a new vehicle development center in Long Beach, in Douglas Park, which is right by the Long Beach airport. Tried to find out more information about that. It looks like it's going to open in 2025. It's going to have a couple hundred to 300 employees out here. And a lot of people are like, well, that's, you got to get the facility and then you got to hire the people. Well, that's not actually what's going on, because we know the Skunkworks team is out here. They've already been working for a couple of years. They've been hiring people. They have, I believe it's Alan Clark that used to be with Tesla with the Model 3 and Model Y program. So they have him, but they've also hired engineers that were working at Rivian. They've hired more engineers from Tesla. They've hired some from Lucid, I believe like 10 from Lucid. The startup Canoe, which is has a lot of potential, I think, but is struggling, of course, financially. They make like vans is what their like specialty is going to be, and they're actually using some of them. The U.S. Postal Service is buying some of them. Look them up if you haven't heard about them. But they've hired some people from Canoe. So Ford has sort of like been picking up talent along the way to be in this Skunkworks team, and they've been functional. They're up and running. We don't know exactly where. We've heard Irvine, California. And a lot of this, again, I'll put a link down in the description, is basically other people trying to figure things out. So like TechCrunch went and looked on LinkedIn and saw like, some of the hiring that Ford was doing and the jobs that they posted over the past, few months, and figured out where people were shifting from, Tesla to Ford, and then they're working out here in Southern California. So like basically piecing together what Ford is doing. And I think it's all very exciting and very cool that they're getting all of this talent that has expertise and experience with other major manufacturers. Alan Clark was a huge pickup. They also have people from I mentioned all these other companies. Apple had a car program that they've the rumor has abandoned, and Ford has hired some of those people as well. But you can't just have engineers designing a product without a way to manufacture it. And you can't have an EV without having batteries. So we've covered this in other videos. I'll just touch base on a little bit of it, but Ford is building multiple battery factories here in the US that will help with the tax credits. In Blue Oval City in Tennessee, that's their biggest facility. It's going to be their largest new facility in decades, and we've been talking about that. That's where we're going to build the next generation F-150 Lightning, but they're not calling it an F-150. So the code name is T3, which is Trust the Truck. There was some news, because we initially thought it was going to be out like end of next year. That's been pushed back to 2026. So some people are disappointed by the delay, but overall, it's not like, I don't think it's a huge deal. We'd like to see it come sooner rather than later. Jim Farley has insisted that basically it's trying to make sure they're coming online with T3 when consumer demand is there, as well as the battery technology and resources are there. So T3 being produced in Blue Oval City, along with a battery plant there that has 43 gigawatt hours capacity, is coming online. They're building some training facilities there. They're bringing on-site suppliers. So like Lowe's is going to have a facility on Blue Oval City in Tennessee. They're also building 2 battery factories in Kentucky. Both of those are going to have 43 gigawatt hours as well. And that's one, again, where they have not paused, they're still building both battery plants. One of them will come online in late 2025, early 2026, start making batteries. The other one, they're going to wait to bring that one into production until they need to ramp up, but it'll be there and ready to go when that is necessary. They also have worked with CATL, Chinese company, to build a factory in Michigan, and they're running into some hurdles there because there's some local resistance to Chinese companies. That's the big fear, is like Chinese companies going to be operating a factory here. It's going to be operated by Ford with technology licensed from CATL. And that one is pretty exciting because it's going to be LFP batteries. And the benefits that Ford is hoping to get out of LFP batteries is that they will be a lot lower cost. So that's exciting to see that that's coming online and that they have that technology. So there's a lot of battery capacity that Ford is working on. Again, they have the T3 plant. There's rumors that that low-cost Skunkworks platform, whatever they produce out of that, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, is going to be produced in the Louisville plant in Kentucky that's currently making the Lincoln Corsair and the Ford Escape. So it makes sort of sense they'll transition to making that hopefully sooner rather than later. Again, maybe 2.5 years, fingers crossed. That would be really cool. There was also, when the UAW negotiations were happening last summer, last fall, one thing that popped up, one of the bullets, was that a new EV vehicle being produced in Dearborn at the Rouge, where they make the Lightning. So that's all we really saw about that. We don't know exactly what that could be. Maybe I was thinking that might be where the Skunkworks truck / SUV / whatever might be built. So who knows? Ford is trying to keep all of this under wraps a little bit. But going back to this whole conversation, I recommend watching the whole thing. But if you want to piece everything together in the greater context, I'm trying to give you that here. There was also a lot of talk about autonomy and what direction Ford is going in. Every time Elon Musk mentions somebody's asked them about licensing FSD, people will jump on and go I bet it's Ford. I bet it's Ford. I don't think it's Ford. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, we have Blue Cruise, which, by the way, we just got a Blue Cruise update last night, so that we have Blue Cruise 1.3. We're getting ready to go film that video right after this one. So search our channel. That one will be out pretty quickly. Blue Cruise is doing excellent. They keep winning awards. It keeps getting ranked very high. And Ford has they had a program that they were working with VW, and it was like a joint venture, Argo AI, and VW and Ford basically decided to shut that down. Since then, immediately afterwards, Ford hired a lot of those engineers, and now they have their own subsidiary called Latitude AI that I've mentioned in other videos, and they're doing their own autonomous driving research. But what Jim Farley has stated in this interview and elsewhere is they are not going for level 5 autonomy robo-taxis where you can just hop in your car and have it drive you wherever, because basically it's very expensive and very difficult to do that. And if you look at Waymo and Cruise and some of the other robo-taxi companies, they still have issues, even with all of the extra sensors that they're putting on them. They generally have human backups that can remotely control the vehicle if there's an issue with weather or some type of issue with the sensors or anything like that. So there has to be that like backup. What he is proposing is, say you have a 45-minute commute to work that's all on the expressway, or freeway, highway, whatever you want to call it. What they want to do is make that where you can do, in addition to hands off, eyes off. So like, you got to get out of your neighborhood, you got to get across a couple of city streets, you get onto the freeway, then you activate, and then that's where you have that 45 minutes of time where you're just in stop and go traffic or cruising down the freeway to allow you to go eyes off, hands off. So then, as he said in this interview, you get 45 minutes back. I think it's a smart way to go without trying to completely take over the entire driving slate of everything that you can do. And it's sort of like, if you're trying to deal with scenarios, those are the easiest ones to deal with. You're not dealing with pedestrians or weird street markings and cars backing out, shopping carts, or skateboards, skateboarders, soccer balls flying into the middle of the road. On the freeway, there's a lot less things that you have to worry about. So I think it's like a way easier segment to focus on. And I think it's a smart way to go. I would love to have full level 5 autonomy. I just don't think we're close. Yes, we've tested out FSD. I haven't tested out the newest versions because, it's only very occasionally that we get to experience it. But I think it's still a ways away. Tesla is talking about their robo-taxi announcement is going to be on August 8th. I'm going to be watching that live because I'll be very interested to see what they're doing. But I'm in the car and it wants to shut off, so I'll just hit OK. It'd be like I'm rooting for Tesla to solve this problem, but I think what Ford is doing is also a pretty good way of handling it. The other thing that in this interview that he talked a lot about was, again, some of the data collection stuff and worries about Chinese companies. But it was also related to like how much data that our cars are going to be collecting and then using that data to make the experience better for customers. That's something that I know is, for some people, a huge red flag. Like they don't want their cars collecting data, but at the same time, it's like we want to know when there's a traffic jam and we should take a detour. So it's all a very interesting conversation. Just overall, I think this conversation that he had, as well as the op-ed, was sort of like a projection of the future of like what Ford is doing, and laying out a very broad strategic vision of how Ford is going to make this transition to EVs. And something that he said repeatedly and over is that there's two main areas where Ford excels. One is professional / commercial / fleet vehicles. They're number one by far. They're like more than double where GM is, the second place fleet vehicle provider, and they're going to continue to excel in that. They're going to provide the trucks, the e-transits. They have like 75% of the electric truck market right now. So they want to continue to excel at that. And part of that goes into, providing those vehicles, but the other part is the fleet management systems that they are doing a great job with, as well as like fleet charging. They have a huge portion of the fleet charging, depot charging, where you're not doing DC fast charging, but you're doing like 80 amp AC charging. We have some videos with Ford Pro. Make sure you check those out. It goes into detail about their vehicles as well as their charging side of the business. And that's something that Ford has always been good at, and they will continue to be good at. The other thing that he has mentioned multiple times is those passion vehicles. And what he means by that is like, that's basically boils down to like the Mustang and the Bronco, Raptor, those vehicles that probably are in excess of what you actually need to get from point A to point B, but they definitely put a grin on your face when you are driving them, and makes a statement about who you are, and makes you, when you leave the car, you're also looking back and looking at it. So that's exciting to see, because there's all this criticism a lot of times about EVs have no soul. You miss the V8 sound or whatever. But I think the Mustang Mach-E that, like I'm sitting in right now, is a great example of a car that has soul. It has a lot of that Mustang styling. It has the sounds, which we never use. We completely turn off. But it makes you like connect that lineage of the Mustang that's 60 years old to the future, which is the Mustang Mach-E. But you can still go buy the Mustang. So, which is another, I'm, hopping around. Jim Farley made sure to point out that it's like Ford is excelling at providing gas cars, hybrid cars, and EVs. So it was really cool to see, that range of options. But it was also like, I like that he's talking about, like, with EVs, we're going to do work vehicles and we're going to do passion vehicles, because I want to see exciting vehicles with interesting designs and styling, and you can look at a car and go, wow, that looks aggressive, those type of things. And then he also talked about, of course, the low budget side of things, as far as he thinks Tesla's going to come out with something like a Model 2 that's been rumored for years, of a lower cost EV that'll be $25,000 to $30,000, and Ford is like, we want to compete there, but they don't want to be just generic. They want it to, like, when you get in, you feel like you're in a Ford, and everything that comes along with that, so like you can make that connection with your $25,000 EV or $30,000 EV to the Bronco, and I sort of liking it to the fact that there's the Bronco that we all love and know, but there's also the Bronco Sport that is nowhere near as capable as the Bronco, but it has like that Bronco name, it has the Bronco logos, and you can go down some dirt roads and have a little bit of fun with that. So that it's like, it may not be a $30,000 super exciting vehicle, but it's going to still have some excitement to it, I hope. That's what it seems to be indicating. Another area that they focused on in the interview that I thought was really interesting was vehicle to grid, vehicle to load. With the F-150 Lightning, you can use it to provide backup power to your house, and like power your house for like 3 days. We could probably power our house for a lot longer than that, because we don't use a lot of electricity here. And how excited he was to be basically like the first to offer that, but how frustrated Ford is that they have a lot of trouble with the grid companies, the power companies, to push that technology forward and make it so that it's a lot easier to do, because it's pretty pricey to hook up a Lightning to your electrical panel. So there's a lot of hurdles to that. But he said basically it makes 0 sense to offer cars without a way to get the power out of the battery into your house or work center or whatever. So I like that. We can't do that with our Mach-E, so I'm like, I wish he would have had that idea before the Mach-E. But I think it's really cool that the Lightning has that that capability, and not only just to the grid, but it's like with Pro Power on board, basically having was it 9.2, 9.4 kilowatts of power that you can output. It's a game changer, whether you're trying to power a bouncy castle or a circular saw on a construction site. Like it's really cool to have that capability. And the fact that he's like, it's silly not to have that when you have all this energy in the vehicle is great. Because like I think every manufacturer needs to take that attitude, and we're seeing that. Like Tesla is now they've announced, and I know it's like becoming available, where you can do power out from like the Cybertruck. Rivian is going to do the same thing with their trucks, and it's apparently like upgradable for the current ones that they've already sold. Hyundai, you can basically put a plug where the charge port is with a little device. Not quite as much as what I'd like to see, but it's a start. And like I love that all manufacturers are doing this, and I really want to see the grid operators embrace this technology. So like when we hook solar on our roof, we had to get approval from the energy company. you have to sort of go through doing the same thing with your vehicle. And in some areas of the country, like they just won't let you do it. And the protocols all have to be standardized. There's a lot of hurdles to that, but really hope that Ford pushes for that, because it makes so much sense for so many people and would be just a great, fantastic solution for people like us that have solar, we work at home, to have this much energy on wheels, so that we can power our home. You know, like when we're not at home, yeah, we wouldn't have power if we had a power failure, but there's ways to address some of this stuff. Like we have two cars, like one could be at home, one's out. I don't know. Anyways, very cool to see that. So I think I covered, I have my notes up over here. I try to just go off the top of my head over everything that was in this and connect it to the bigger picture. I do want to, finish up talking about the LinkedIn article, because he was looking for feedback. I'm looking for feedback. So put it down in the comments. Like, what do you like about EVs? Were you a car person? Are you now just like, I'm a car person, but I love EVs? Do you miss your V8? Do you miss your automatic transmissions? Somebody posted yesterday, and I thought this is a perfect analogy. It's like, I want 3 pedals or just one. And it's sort of like, yeah, and what they meant is like I had a WRX. It was so much fun driving with the stick shift and shifting and having the 3 pedals. But now that I'm done with that, I was like, just give me the one pedal driving, love it. He talks about, like, he drives a F-150 Lightning every day. I know before he was driving a Mach-E. In the video you'll see, if you watch the interview, he was wearing a Mach-E jacket. And he talked about, just one other note in the article is, if you want to go have some fun, take a Mustang Mach-E rally in the dirt. We got to do that at Dirtfish. We have a video on that as well. But yeah, EVs can be fun and they can be exciting, but it's like, then you start realizing the convenience of it. I was just talking to my brother a couple of weeks ago about how nice it is not to have to go to the gas station. And he still has gas cars. So he's like, he still has to go to the gas station with his gas car, but nobody likes it. And you don't think about it. It's such a big part of your routine that it's hard to imagine not doing it. So, but once you get there and you don't have to do it, like we're full EV now, like I can't remember the last time I went to a gas station to actually pump gas. It's so nice not having to not having to do that. And so nice knowing that, if a friend's like, hey, can you meet us down in San Diego? It's like 45 miles away, that I don't have to go like, yeah, I'll meet you there, but let me stop and get gas first. Why? Because the car's in the garage and it's charged. Like I just know it's charged. It's ready to go. So there's so many different reasons why. And he's like, you can list all of these on paper, but the best thing is just to go and experience this. So I know a lot of times we as EV enthusiasts, we try to talk to people about why we like EVs. But I think the biggest thing is like, if we can encourage people to go to something like Electrify Expo, which we're going to watch out for videos on that. We just did Electrify Expo Long Beach. We have videos coming out on that as well, where people get behind the wheel of an EV in a low pressure situation. Let them give it a try. They'll love the fun of it. Puts a grin on your face because they're all pretty darn quick. Even the slow EVs are pretty quick. So it can be one thing to talk to people, but like try to get them to experience it. It's still hard to explain to people, like, yeah, it's really, really nice not having to go to a gas station. And that's, these are the things that Jim Farley talks about, is like, it's hard to really explain all of this stuff. And it's really interesting. People want to focus on road trips. And this is another stat. We heard this stat earlier, and now Ford is actually talking about it. So we'll start talking about it. It was like, they have the telematics from cars. They know, and from surveys and whatever, they know like how people are using their vehicles. And the average person has less than 4 days a year where they drive more than 150 miles. So that means 361 days the EV is perfect. It's like no issues whatsoever because you can charge at home if you have home charging. 80% of Ford customers have charging at home. So that's like a huge other thing that needs to be addressed. But for those 4 days, now it's like you got to deal with EV charging, range anxiety, charging anxiety, and Ford has been doing a great job of addressing that. Jim Farley talked about like thankful for Elon Musk for opening up the supercharger network. That process is slow. We need more adapters. We need Tesla to make more adapters because that's where Ford's getting their adapters. But it's actually really great to have more and more options. We're getting ready to head out on a 2,300 mile plus round trip starting on July 4th. Stay tuned for videos on that. We're going to be testing out the Tesla Supercharger Network as well as Electrify America and EVgo and Flying J and ChargePoint. So we're going to test out all of these. We've done it before. We're going to do it again and show that it's a little bit different way of driving. I can't just wait till my low fuel light pops on and then like take the next exit. But all I got to do is like when I'm leaving one charging station, program in like, here's my destination. It'll tell me where to go charge in what appropriate distance. So it's a little bit different way of thinking about things, but we're getting there. I'm excited. This interview was excellent. Hopefully, I was trying to make it very short. I ended up going a little bit longer. So hopefully you watched this video, but you also watched the video with Jim Farley. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about the LinkedIn article that's down in the description. And please give me your feedback on what you think about all of this stuff. Like I'm curious about whether it's the Skunkworks or why you liked EVs or what Ford is doing manufacturing wise with EVs and Blue Oval City, all of that. Let's have a conversation down in the comments below. We're going to go. Liv is still getting ready. We're getting ready to go film our Blue Cruise 1.3 video. So with that note, I'm going to say, just remember, whatever you drive, whether it has Blue Cruise 1.0, 1.3, somewhere in between, or something else, or nothing, enjoy the drive. Enjoy the ride. Gosh, I still messed it up.